Hello and welcome then to a special kind of secret podcast for this week. Didn't plan to do one, but because of events of the weekend just gone and the weekend forthcoming, thought I'd just cobble a few bits together for you. Of course, Skolars at the weekend, losing the Northern Rail Bowl final. Got some reaction for that with you with the assistant coach Marcus Tobin at Skolars. Also, Dylan Skee, who's approaching becoming the Skolars top record point scorer for the club. Also some reaction and chat from our journey to and from Halifax, and also we'll hear from Martin Offiah on Broncos Challenge Cup semi-final game at Wigan. Of course, two of his former clubs going head-to-head on Saturday. So that's a brief summary of what's going up in this sort of slightly truncated and shorter programme, and of course unscripted as well. Today we're going raw on Rugby League Down South. Any comments, as ever, I say every week, on email, rldownsouth@gmail.com. Always nice to hear from you, as it is on Twitter. It's been a very busy week for myself on Twitter with the comments that I've had about various topics. We'll talk about that later. But at Ian Ramsdale, if you want to get in touch, at Ian Ramsdale on Twitter. Let's start with the Skolars then, and a defeat, wasn't it, in the Northern Rail Bowl final. Couldn't add any silverware to their cabinet, which has only been up for just over 10 years, hasn't it, really, since the professional ranks. They started back in 2003. Of course, they've been formed, I think, 1995, if I remember my research correctly, for the Northern Rail Bowl final. I was covering the game for Premier Sports. David Ballheimer was covering the game for BBC London. We'll hear our chat and our summary a little later, but first of all, the assistant coach of Skolars in Marcus Tobin. We tried to get a word with Joe Mabu at the end of the game, but he'd gone to hospital with Adiada BC, who was having a scan on his ankle, so we couldn't catch up with those two, but we did have a chat with Marcus Tobin for his reaction, the club's reaction to what was a defeat to the North Wales Crusaders.
Marcus, well, you seem to do yourself a lot of credit in that first half, but did it run away with your second half?
Yeah, I think the last quarter of the game we lost a bit of composure, and as a result we started falling off the tackles, and they started getting a roll on and play the ball, and we ran out a bit of an energy, and I think you're right, it just went away from us. But I think for the first hour of the game we played some good rugby league, but it's just unfortunate we couldn't sustain it right till the end.
It seemed like you were well in the game till sort of quite a way on. You've been on a good run of form recently. How does that rank with sort of where you are as a team at the moment?
I think it's an indication. We were soundly beaten by Crusaders earlier on in the season, and the fact we'd won 4 league games in a row, it's probably an indication that we have greatly improved. But in the same token, as illustrated in the last 20 minutes, we just, the higher echelons, we just need to move up the table. To enable to do this, we just need a bit more consistency in the last quarter of the games. But I think it is a measure, actually, of how we are improving as a team and moving forward.
Did a couple of decisions not go your way?
Well, I mean, it's always disappointing, but I mean, the one thing is we also acknowledge that handling errors and the like aren't refereeing decisions, so that's things that we've got to address. And it's always disappointing when a close call doesn't go your way, but as I say, we're more concentrating on the things that we can address. There's one or two technical things we need to improve on, and I'm confident that we can do that leading into the end of the season.
And a quick word on Andy BC. He's gone to hospital for a check on his ankle.
Yeah, Joe's actually gone with him, hence you're talking to me. Joe, you're absolutely right. Hopefully it's not too serious, but obviously the fact he's had to go on a stretcher is not great news, so we hope he's okay.
So unfortunately a defeat for the London Skolars. I haven't managed to get an injury update as well on Adiada BC and where he's up to. We wish him all the best. I was actually chatting to him in the dugout before the game, managed to spot him before we started our duties for Premier Sports, and had a quick chat. Looking forward to the final as well, and they'd pretty much been written off before the game as underdogs, and really did make a good account of themselves. And we've seen twice now, 2 games that I've done on the TV on Premier Sports with Skolars. They really paint a good picture of what's happening in London and the development and where they're at as a club in terms of being in Championship 1. So really great to see, and getting out to a new audience as well. Did get a little bit sloppy, a little bit scrappy toward the end of the game. physically as well as in terms of the playmaking. But the Skolars again getting to the final, and a good concept in the Northern Rail Bowl final for them to get an opportunity to put some silverware in the cabinet. But it's gone the way of the North Wales Crusaders, and I wonder whether we might see a similar final towards the end of the Championship 1 season. Will be interesting to see, won't it? I wonder if, I'm pretty sure Rochdale and Oldham will have something to say about that, but let's see how things go, as it looks interesting, the Championship 1 table. A couple of teams with games in hand and stuff, and so you never know quite where that's going to be, but Skolars with a couple of wins with their games in hand, and they'll be well back in contention. Well, let's hear now from one of the Skolars players as we have this slightly shorter and special Rugby League Down South podcast for this week. Dylan Skee before the game on Saturday was 11 points short of Paul Thorman's record points total for the London Skolars Club. He is their current record points title holder, something like that. Now, again, this is all from memory. Again, sorry, it's unscripted, this programme. I think Thorman scored 488 points. So Skee was 11 short and scored, kicked 4 conversions. I think one might have been a penalty if you want to be pedantic, but scored 8 points for the London Skolars at the weekend. So he's now 3 short of equalling that 488 of Paul Thorman. Not quite there yet. I hung around in the tunnel at the end of the game to grab him as he came out of the changing rooms. Had a really good chat with him, and here is the bit that we put on the record with Dylan Skee. So here is Dylan Skee at the end of that game, 3 points away then from that all-time record.
Well, Dylan, let's start with the Northern Rail Bowl final. I thought, an hour in, we've got a game on here, haven't we?
Yeah, definitely. Even a bit later than that, I thought we still had a chance, but they upped their intensity a bit, and I think at the back end, about 20 to go, we didn't go with them, and it cost us in the first half. We upped it more than them, and then the last 20, every time they made an error, we'd make an error and then give them a penalty, so it's always tough, isn't it?
A couple of injuries for you in that second half, but like you say, a couple of errors from you, and they were quite clinical with ball in hand, weren't they?
Yeah, definitely. It was probably reverse how we were in the first half was how they were in the second half, but they took a bit more advantage of it, and they got the points on and we couldn't go with them, and that happens really in rugby league. If you don't go with a team, they go away from you. A bit disappointing in the final score because I don't think it was that sort of game, but those things happen in rugby league, don't they?
Seems to do Skolars a lot of credit, the name of Skolars a lot of credit in that first half, though, because at one point people were saying that the game maybe was going to run away from you, but I knew you wouldn't give up. But the team came back, and it was set up all square at half time. Yeah,
definitely. What we were reading before the game was, to us was a bit of an insult, really. Fair enough, Crusaders have had a good season, but we went there to play them with a pretty much as second side. We did have a lot of injuries and people playing out of position, so we were always confident, and we knew if we turned up we could do it. And the first half showed it, but in the second half we just didn't go with them. They really stepped up, and we didn't step up further than them like we did in the first half, and that resulted in the final score. So a bit of a shame, but it happens. Live and learn.
A couple more points for yourself as well on the scoreboard today. I think at the beginning of the game you were about 11 short of equalling Paul Thorman's record as record point scorer at Skolars. I mean, I'm sure that's not in your mind when you're on the field of play, but you're edging ever closer.
Yeah, I'm getting closer. I don't really think of those things, to be honest. I just, as it comes, we got one of our directors. He's happy to tell you as soon as you're getting close to I'm pretty sure he's got every stat down in the world, from how many drop goals have gone in a game to everything. So he's quick to tell us. But if I get there, good achievement. I hope to, because I haven't been there that long, and the club's going places. So it'd be good to have me name down there. Hopefully as top point scorer. Hopefully not for too long, and not, a young kid comes through and can break it, because that's what we want at the club. We want it to go places, so that's what we need, really.
Just shows, though, with a player like yourself, comes to the club, makes the most of it, I guess, is the best way of putting it. And if you do end up, with that record point scorer, like you say, it's been a good time to be at the club, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. When I left Whitehaven, I spoke to Joe a fair bit, and I've always loved London from the London Broncos days, the Harlequins back then. So I've always had a soft spot for London. It's kind of my home away from Australia. So I was always happy to come back, play for London Skolars, and it's been good to me. I've enjoyed it, and it showed on the point score. So it's been good.
What's your plan? You going to hang around for a few more years maybe with Skolars?
It's in negotiation at the moment. So
Do you want to stay?
I do want to stay, but I've got a partner that can't get into the country, so we've got to sort that out, and hopefully the club and I can come to an arrangement, sort it out, and I can be here for a fair few more seasons. But we've done a season apart already, so I don't know if I'll be in the good books if I do another season. So once we sort that out, I'd love to stay at the club. So, but we've got to sort that out first.
And just finally, what is it about Skolars? I mean, you say you like London and the club's going places, but what is the atmosphere? What is the feeling you get about what's happening there at the moment?
I've been to other clubs, and people think, London, it's not rugby league, but it's a good vibe. The dedication's there. People up north, travellers, 2 hours there called travellers, where the boys can travel up to an hour and a half to get to train. But it's still a good vibe. We get there, everyone gets on with it, and rugby league's always, you got to switch on, but it's always good to switch off and enjoy it. And you live in one of the best cities in the world, so you can't complain with that, can you? And you can play football there. It's, I think hopefully in the next couple of years, even with the London Broncos, they can really step up and go places. So even with the new system, you never know. So, but no, it's a beautiful place, great place to live. So all good things about it.
Dylan Skee there, the halfback from London Skolars, talking about his future in particular. Wants to hang around, he wants to stay. Really supportive of what's happening in London. Of course, he's seen it from all perspectives, hadn't he? Being involved with the Broncos, but not easy, sort of personally at the moment for him. So trying to get things sorted to see whether they can. See if Dylan Skee can hang around. Very crucial to what London Skolars do, and particularly in the last couple of seasons has been pivotal and crucial to all the good stuff that they are. I say most of the good stuff that they've done. It was a shame that midway through the game, Andy McLean was injured and wasn't able to continue their partnership, which has been rather fruitful so far this year. But fingers crossed we'll see more of Dylan Skee, not just later this year, but also in future years as well. You're listening to Rugby League Down South, a special podcast for you this week, unscripted, which is probably why I keep falling back on the usual ways of just giving the email and the Twitter and stuff while I try and think of what to say next. In terms of that, let's have a bit more chat, shall we? On the way back from Halifax, at the Shea, where the Northern Rail Bowl final was hosted, I was sharing the journey with car sharing with journalist David Ballheimer. He'd done some reports for BBC London on the game, and I thought we should have a chat. We heard from myself on the podcast last week on the journey back from Sheffield with Jamie Hill of BBC London. So I thought, let's have a chat on the way back with David Ballheimer. Not just about the Skolars, plenty about Broncos, the season, the Super League, the Challenge Cup as well. Plenty to discuss, which kept us busy. And here is part of our journey, recorded on the way back from Halifax on Saturday night.
So on the way back from Halifax after the Northern Rail Bowl final, Skolars putting out a good show, a really good account of themselves, and at half time sort of fought their way back to 16-all. Game got away a little bit from them in the second half, and then they got a little bit sloppy towards the end of the game, and the scoreline ran away from them. So North Wales Crusaders were the team to add a bit of silverware to their cabinet. The Skolars cabinet will have to wait for long, but David Ballheimer's joined me for the journey. David, you've seen a lot of rugby league across London and the South over the years. This was an opportunity for Skolars to potentially be the first London team to win some silverware. What was your account of how it happened?
To be honest, I thought they were underdogs going into the game. North Wales topped the table, were very comfortable winners over the Skolars earlier in the season, and I thought they would probably win the game. I thought at 16-all at half time, and I know when we both saw the team, we were much more confident. I thought it was a very strong Skolars team. Smokey Junior very unlucky not to get a place in there, but Alex Hurst has played Super League this season, and obviously as a dual reg player he does need to get game time. A number of turning points in the game for me. I suppose the crucial one was when the score was 2018 to Crusaders. The Broncos had Skolars had a try disallowed by Ollie Purslow, he seemed to have grounded the ball over the line. He was utterly confident he had done so. The video referee, however, ruled against him, and almost immediately a penalty was conceded, and the game went away very quickly. There was something like 4 tries in 15 minutes. There was one score for the Skolars in that time when Sam Wellings went over, but the game went away in that period, and it didn't help that Skolars suffered 2 major injuries during the game. Just before half time, Andy McLean limped off with a quadriceps injury that we think is a muscular one, but we're not certain. Marcus Tobin, interviewed afterwards, said he thought it was muscular. That was a big loss, because although Mike Bichet was able to move into the standoff role, it meant that the hooking rotation involved Jermaine Ray and Martin Smith, both of whum had started on the bench. And when Ade Adebisi suffered what looks a very serious ankle injury just before a try was scored in 60-something minutes, it was the last interchange that the Skolars could make.
I think it's a very fair and accurate assessment, that, David. And I think in terms of the competition, before we talk about maybe a few more wider issues, the Northern Rail Bowl, an opportunity for probably Championship 1 clubs to get to a final and to maybe win something. Get your thoughts on that, and also how the dual registration has fitted into it, because we saw Mikey Bichet play for Skolars in this final. He's played at Hemel in the earlier stages of the competition. I don't think the Crusaders coach Clive Griffiths was overly happy when he saw Bichet's name on the team sheet. But what do you think? How's the competition worked in potential of having a final and also the dual reg?
I think having a final and having 2 Championship 1 clubs playing in it is absolutely brilliant. Making a day of it, I think, is a very good idea. The Bowl, brilliant idea. Loved the idea that the Skolars A got to the final, and if they'd beaten Whitehaven and then Lee, who knows, they might even have been playing Sheffield and given them the chance.
A long shot.
Very long shot, but they could have done the double over Sheffield, the 2 London teams, in 2 weeks. Not that I think Mark Aston would ever speak to me again about that, but no, realistically, fantastic idea, and it's a great reward for the teams in Championship 1. They've never got a chance of doing anything in the Challenge Cup. There is no other cup competition that they enter. So what a great way of getting 2 teams to play in a high-profile, televised bowl final that's not the Championship playoff finals day, which is, again, it's a finals day rather than a competition final, and I think it was very good.
What about dual reg?
Don't get me started on dual reg. Okay, you've got me started on dual reg. I don't think any dual reg players should have been allowed to compete in the final of the Northern Rail Bowl, or the Northern Rail Cup for that matter.
They can help you get there but not play the final.
Absolutely, this should be about the 2 clubs. Yep. Having said that, without question, the Crusaders were much stronger without dual reg players than the Skolars were with 3 of them. So Erjan Delapi scored a try. Mike Bichet did an awful lot of very good things. His 40-20 at the start of the second half was absolutely outstanding. It bounced into touch a metre from the flag and then rolled against the flag, having gone into touch first. Set up a great position from which the Skolars knocked on the first tackle. But dual reg players, I think there are too many of them, and it doesn't help in many ways that teams don't know which dual reg players they get until a couple of days before the games that they're playing, which means they're not part of the training setup. The set moves that teams run they can't actually use, because how can they put in somebody, well, he wasn't there for the set move. It was interesting, the first Skolars try was made in Roehampton. It was a quick play the ball from Mike Bichet to Erjan Delapi, and I actually made a note in my as I was writing it, try made in Roehampton and scored in Halifax by a North London team. But there is this issue, and I think the RFL is going to tweak the dual registration rules next year, that Mike Bichet is able to play for 2 different teams and is registered for 2 teams even now, I think is wrong. Chris Melling has been a good servant, I'm told, to Hemel Stags this year. he should be playing for Skolars, in my opinion, and he would have made a huge difference to Skolars in the early going. And I noticed a couple of years ago when the Skolars took a couple of French players, experienced players who'd been around for years, who came in, a couple of younger players were really upset that they were losing the chance. And I said, you just watch the way that they deport themselves, the way they carry themselves to training, the way they prepare for training, the way they prepare for matches. Study and learn from them and use them as types of mentors so that you can learn from that. That is far better than just, as I say, parachuting players in.
Let's talk about a few wider issues. I know that you were involved in our pubcast a couple of podcasts ago, which was a bit of a special. Kind of a few car casts we've done in the last few weeks. One when we went to Sheffield, and this one with you, David, on the way back from Halifax and the Northern Rail Bowl. So just to get the stats right, you're 85.9 miles away from London at the moment on our way back on the M1. Another hour and 15 minutes, so says the sat-nav. You may have heard it shouting at us in the background just before. But let's talk about Broncos, David. The results on Friday night, a defeat to Widnes, and Salford beating Catalans. Is that it? Is that Broncos finishing on the foot of the table for the first time ever?
I think very possibly, yes, it is. When I saw the team lineup that was announced and then heard that Luke Dorn had got injured in training, I thought, I'm not a betting person, but if I'd been betting, I'd have bet on a 20 or 30 point victory for Widnes, no matter how much out of form the Vikings might be. The London team that went up is hardly representative of the capital. It's a real problem that with so many injuries, the squad just simply isn't big enough and strong enough to cope with the loss of so many. The best 13 that the Broncos can put out probably is a match for all but the top 3 in Super League. Take out even 2 of the top 13 players and the club is no match for anybody outside the bottom 2 or 3. And when you've got 7 or 8 missing, then I'm not sure that the team that played yesterday would have come close to beating Sheffield in a cup tie, because I don't think that team was strong enough mentally, physically, or had enough quality to win it. So yes, I do think they're going to finish bottom, and it's a real shame, but it's the players that haven't done it.
What you've got now, though, is a Challenge Cup semi-final against Wigan at the weekend. It's interesting to hear whether you think that a season could be made off the back of a semi-final or a final appearance. Would it have to be a final appearance for people to say, there has been some success this year if they were to finish bottom? And can they do it? It's a cup game. Everyone says anything can happen in the cup. Wigan, very strong this year. You'd have thought Broncos will have some players back. Jamie Soward was rested. He did need a rest, I think, and they decided to rest him. I'm sure if he would have been fighting fit and full, he would have played against Widnes. But how do you see it, and what would be considered as a success on Saturday?
It has to be a victory. For bottom place to be acceptable, the Broncos have got to get to Wembley. To lose a semi-final to Wigan, even if it's 23-22, it's still a defeat and it's not a Wembley appearance. If Skolars get to Wembley, then Broncos get to Wembley rather, then you can take a bottom place finish because, hey, they played in the Challenge Cup final, and that's a major achievement. And of course they will have beaten Wigan to get there, which means they'd have beaten Bradford and Wigan, something they haven't done. They haven't beaten 2 Super League teams in the Challenge Cup, probably in this century for certain, and probably since the mid-90s. So it would be an incredible achievement to get 2 victories against Super League sides, and 2 victories against Super League sides that aren't amongst the bottom feeders. Unless Wigan decide to rest Sam Tompkins, half the pack, and both scrum half and stand off. In fact, if they took the field with 7, I'd say it would be a fairly close no, I'm being unkind there.
Take your point.
I'd love to see a Broncos win. I'll pray for a Broncos win, but as a hard-nosed journalist, I've got to say, I can't see it happening.
And finally, for this point of the chat and this point of the podcast, I'm going to open a Haribo any minute, David, if you're interested. But what to do with the club? And not by the club, I mean Club Double B. The news from last week, sick of losing. He wants out. He's asked to be released from his contract. I'd heard that there'd been interest in him, and it seems that he's inquired about the possibility of being released. He's contracted until the end of next year. Tony Ray sort of said a few comments saying, somebody's got in his head, and that he's still confident that he can have a part to play within the club. The feeling from the fans that contacted me on Twitter was saying, don't want him at the club anymore, because if you got someone who's there who doesn't want to play for you, then that's and it's come out so publicly to say it. You don't want them to be part of it. How disappointing is it, for one, for him to say, I don't want to play for this London club anymore, because he's the current face, the current voice, the current everything, of London Rugby League. He's the top man and he's the captain. And secondly, what will happen? What should be done? And will we see him at Broncos next year?
To answer the last question first, I think not. Of all the players who've been around for 4 and 5 years, I think he has been one of the most disappointing. 4 years ago, he was playing for England, scored 4 tries in a match against Tonga in the 4-team competition they had, and was thought to be a player really going forward. He doesn't know what his position is. He doesn't know whether he's a prop, a back row forward, second row forward, or a centre. And I'm not sure what his best position is. I think he's almost too big to be a centre. He doesn't have the burst of pace that a centre needs. I'm really not certain. I think he has gone backwards significantly in the last 3 or 4 years. And if he sees me and wants to have a word with me about it, by all means. I'm telling what I've seen. I don't think he has gone forward from where he was 3 and 4 years ago. Maybe it's the uncertainty in the club that has left him lacking in confidence. And whether it is a confidence issue, I don't know. But Tony Clubbs, as a leader, I'm not sure that he's vocal enough. I'm not sure he's got the personality to be a team leader on the pitch. And it was noticeable when Jamie Soward made his debut 2 or 3 weeks ago against Salford. He took over as captain of the team on the pitch, de facto captain, probably within 2 minutes of coming on, and he was organising. I don't think, because of his position in the forwards and his frequent rests, obviously because of the way that he plays, that he can lead the team in the same way. And I'm not sure he's got the personality to be a leader. For instance, Craig Gower was a natural leader. Jamie Soward's a natural leader. I don't think Clubb is in that mould as a leader. So I think there's lots of issues. And I think Tony Clubb is still a Super League player. But there are an awful lot of members of the London Broncos squad at the moment that I do not think fill that criterion.
I think it's interesting you say about the leadership thing. I think one of the reasons why Tony Clubb was appointed as captain or chosen as captain was the fact that he was this London person, and the club wanted to try and sell that. I didn't think they expected him to go out on the field and start doing anything overly different and bossing the team around like the playmakers do. But that's what adds to the disappointment for me, because he was given the privilege of being the captaincy, and well, it looks like it doesn't want it anymore, doesn't he? Wants out. It'll be interesting to see what happens over the next few weeks or months. You'll find out anything else here on Rugby League Down South. In fact, I quite like this idea of the car cast, the drive cast. I don't know what quite to call it, but it's a great way of passing the time. David, thank you very much for your company today and your company on the podcast.
My pleasure.
So that's the thoughts of myself and David Ballheimer on the way back from the Northern Rail Bowl final. And before we talk more about the Broncos and move away from the Skolars, as you're listening to a special secret podcast, I should probably give you some what kind of special or secret information. You may have seen that with the Rugby League World Cup coming to this country towards the end of the year, there's a campaign at the moment called Find Our Balls, which if you find one of these special Rugby League World Cup balls, well, you win 2 tickets, I think, to the doubleheader at Wembley later in the year. So I'm told, I think, it's been hinted at, there may well be one of these balls being hid at the London Junior League finals this weekend. Now, I've not really been told too much more than that. You might have to keep an eye on social media, which is where this is being pumped around. And yeah, I just keep having a look. I think there's a hashtag which is Find Our Balls. But if you are going to the London Junior League finals day this weekend, again, just keep your eyes peeled. Maybe you might see something, but yeah, have a look on Twitter, and I'm sure you might see maybe a North London club. Maybe keep your eye on as well. They might give you a few clues as to where it might be. London Scholars, maybe. I don't know. That would fit with the podcast, wouldn't it? Have a look. Your opportunity to get yourself 2 free tickets. I think get to keep the ball as well. These are orange balls as well. So you might want that. You might not. Have a look, though. So I thought, there you go, a bit of secret information on this secret podcast for Rugby League down south for this week. But as we have moved the conversation round to the Broncos, a big weekend for them, isn't it, really, in the Challenge Cup. Worth mentioning at this point, Tuesday morning, or was it Wednesday morning? I can't remember. It was Tuesday morning, I think, yes. The all-party parliamentary rugby league group chairman, Greg Mulholland, raised an issue with the RFL, saying that he thought, or the group thought, speaking on behalf of the group, they thought it was unfair that the semi-final between Broncos and Wigan was at Leigh, asked the RFL to consider moving it. I think at this point, I mean, to be fair, it sparked an absolute riot of debate on Twitter. I had almost 100 messages within just under the 2-hour spell following sort of me putting these details onto Twitter, and there was varying degrees of comments. Some people saying, why raise this now? Some people saying they've got no problem with it. Others saying, absolutely valid to raise the point. I'll say I don't think that they were doing it to try and get the game shifted, but they felt, because of representation which they'd had from London Broncos fans, that they should raise the issue and talk about the point. And I think that was maybe the bottom line to come out of it. I didn't expect the game to be moved, and I'm pretty sure nobody expected the game to be moved. But I'm glad that it was mentioned for the good of the game, and I say that not meaning... the RFL did respond, didn't they? They put a statement out. You haven't seen it on the it's on the RFL website, basically saying that all this semi-final venues and scenarios had been pre-selected based on the clubs getting through. I think then they could start organising things for if it was to happen. So all the options had already been okayed by the Broncos, and obviously they were fine with it. If they got through and Wigan got through and they were drawn against them, then Leigh would be the venue, and Broncos had said that was fine, in inverted commas. And I don't think the issue really with Greg was saying that there was anything wrong as such, or anything underhand had happened. That wasn't the point. But if you consider the prospect of it being a neutral venue, is Leigh really a neutral venue? The RFL said that they wanted to try and show the game in the best light, wanted to make sure that there was a good audience in there for television cameras, which I understand, and having it at Leigh, you're going to get exactly that. You don't have... You do kind of have a neutral venue because it's no venue that either side use, but it's not entirely neutral, is it? I would like to see it be a rugby league ground, because you want the money and the revenue that maybe the ground would get to staying with the game, rather than taking it to a union ground or a football ground. No disrespect to those sports, but I just think we should keep it within our game. But maybe my suggestion was Hull. It's travelling time for Broncos fans, it's travelling time for Wigan fans, and I think that might have been fairer, if that made sense. But they didn't. They went for somewhere near Leigh to maximise the crowd, and I can completely understand that, because they did state that, there aren't many Broncos fans that travel. And as much as you may disagree with the sentiment behind that, it's a fact, it's true, and what they've done is they've catered for the majority of the fans, which is unfortunate. But I think you've got to kind of take it on the chin and say, well, that's the situation at the moment. We wish things were different, and hopefully things can be different in the future, but they're not at the moment, which is why they did that. But I think it was right for the all-party parliamentary rugby league group to raise the issue, to say that it has been noted, and I think from there we can move on. It's happening, it's at Leigh, but it was nice that somebody saw it and heard the representation of Broncos fans, and for such a high body like that to make a representation, I think spoke volumes, particularly when they say they're looking to grow the game of the RFL in London, but they decided to take it to a Heartlands venue, and take it away from London. So good that they recognised it, and that's my thoughts and a few of your thoughts and a few of reasoning as well here on Rugby League Down South. But as we are on the topic of the Broncos, let's hear from Martin Offiah, shall we? He's also been involved in the Find Our Balls campaign for the Rugby League World Cup. I had a chat with him last week at Wembley, so I'm not entirely sure whether he's hid his ball yet. I think he has, because he was going to hide it after I'd met him. And I'm not sure whether it's been found yet, so you might have to check that. So some of this interview, it's what I'm saying, might not be valid at this moment in time. But hopefully you'll find it of interest to what he says about various topics. So here is myself and Martin Offiah at Wembley.
Well, Martin, the World Cup gets ever closer. We've talked about it on numerous occasions. As it does get closer, do you get more excited?
Absolutely. We're now 100 days to the World Cup, and that's why I'm here as a Rugby League World Cup 2013 ambassador, to take part in the promotion that we're doing. 100 balls are going to be hid all around the country, and I'm hiding my ball in the capital. You have to guess where that is if you want to find out a little bit more. If you follow me on Twitter at Martin Offiah, I'll be giving some hints to where my ball is hidden, and whoever finds that ball will win 2 tickets to the big hit, the double header that's going to be here, the 2 semi-finals, 4 of the best teams in the world performing on one stage, and that lucky winner who finds that ball wherever I decide to hide it, as I say, will win 2 tickets to this fantastic stadium.
And we've got you here at Wembley. It's a ground and a stadium in an area that is really synonymous with the history of rugby league, and like you say, 2 massive games here, and you have close connections with Wembley as well, having played here on numerous occasions.
Absolutely. Every time I walk into the stadium, I feel the hairs rise on the back of my neck. Played here first, I think, back in 1991 for Great Britain against Australia. We won that day. Had a few close encounters. A lot of success, obviously, in my Wigan days, winning 4 Challenge Cup finals on this stadium. Had a loss with the London Broncos. So it's pretty ironic that Wigan play London in the semi-final of the Challenge Cup next weekend, on the weekend of the 26th and 27th of July. So this stadium has a lot of memories for me, and very happy to always come back here.
And in terms of the World Cup, we've seen a lot of England against Australia competitions sort of around at the moment. You've got the Ashes on. Is there a rivalry in rugby league between England and Australia like there is within the other sports?
Well, anyone who knows anything about sport in England and Australia knows that the Australians don't like the Pommies and the Pommies don't like the Aussies. So, we've had a lot of success. The Ashes, we 1-0 up on that. The Lions took out the test with Australia. So there's a lot of pressure mounting on Steve McNamara and the England boys come October, November time. And hopefully that, England can do the stuff, and we can get into the semi-final, and hopefully we can go on and win the Rugby League World Cup.
Well, when we've talked before, you've said, England do have the potential to win the competition. They are good enough. They have got the players. As it comes closer, you see the Super League season go on. Do you get more confident, less confident? Are you just as confident?
I think there's, an air of confidence in the England team. We saw recently the Exiles game, England versus the Exiles. there was a lot of pressure heaped on that that England team. They did deliver. I know the first half was a bit better than the second half, but in Sinfield, the Golden Boot winner, he led the boys, I think, fantastically in that first half against the Exiles. In the second half, things got away from England a little bit, but definitely there's a lot of hope, a lot of ambition in this England team. As I said, there's a lot of pressure as well, but I'm always someone who's an eternal optimist, and I believe that Steve McNamara and the England boys can do it.
And what about having the double header in the World Cup here at Wembley? There's obviously a big element of that history. We talk about Wembley being used for Challenge Cups and for big England games in the past. But it's also in London an area, an expansion area. How much does it weigh on either side? How much are we playing a game here for the history, and how much in terms of trying to bring it to a new audience?
I think a little bit of both. Rugby league, a lot of people do see it as a northern sport, but there's a fantastic amount of history that is in London. We go back, the Broncos, the Crusaders and Fulham, and the fact that the Challenge Cup has been played here long before anyone who's probably watching this interview was born. I think 1929 the first Challenge Cup was played at Wembley. So that's a lot of history at the stadium, a lot of history for rugby league in the south and at London. And I think that history has shown that British teams perform well. Whether it's England, in 1995, we came a whisker away from winning the World Cup. As I say, in 99, even in that year, I think England won the first game here against the Aussies. I've been in teams that in 94, Jonathan Davis scored that fantastic drive. Justin won the corners here. In 91, Great Britain won here against Australia. So this is as much a spiritual home as the homes and the stadiums, the Norton Parks, the Central Parks. Some stadiums don't even exist anymore. That a spiritual home for rugby league up in the north. So I think rugby league has a fantastic history here at Wembley, and hopefully, come late November, we can improve on that history, and England can get to the semi-final and beat whoever they play.
You've scored a few tries here as well. You're going to be immortalised in a statue outside at some point in the future as well. People say arguably you scored one of the best tries that's happened here at Wembley. But one of the games where maybe, I don't know, how do you reflect on the Broncos Challenge Cup final here? It was a great day out for London. It was really good for the sport, but it ended in defeat. What are your overriding memories of that day?
Well, I always like to take positives from everything, even if it was a loss. My memories are that I remember scoring the opening try that day. And, we started off pretty well. Leeds, a formidable team. Got over us that day. I was unfortunate to come off with an injury in the second half. Obviously, Leroy Yvette's going to remember that day very well, quite fondly. He scored 4 tries that day. The last time that Leeds have won a Challenge Cup, and when we see how successful Leeds have been in the modern era, and that's still the last time that they won a Challenge Cup in the old stadium. So, the Challenge Cup, Wembley, it's got a lot of memories, positive, not so positive for some teams, but it's always a place you want to actually try and get to. And I'm sure that London, if they can actually get to Wembley, that will be a feat in itself, getting over the Wigan Warriors, who are, sitting at the top of the table in the Super League at the moment.
Back in 99, how big was that game for the sport of rugby league in London?
I think it was huge. If I'm honest, probably we didn't kick on in London as much as we could. We had Richard Branson leading us out that day, and who knows what could have happened if we'd won. But as I say, it's an amazing feat just to actually get to Wembley, and then you want to take that other step and actually win. We're at the semi-finals, as I say, next weekend, and a lot of people are saying it's going to be a Warrington, a Wigan, final, similar to what we had back in 1990. But Hull and London are in it. It's sport. I always say, if you have a lot riding on something, then you can't be blasé about it. A lot of people look at these semi-finals and are saying who's going to win this and who's going to win that. But if you invest a lot into something, then you're in for the journey. And I'm sure that the Hull and London spectators, don't see it as a foregone conclusion.
And you're well connected still within the London Rugby League circles. How do you see Broncos' chances against Wigan? Because to get to Wembley would be massive for them, but the hurdle that's in the way at the moment looks semi-unstoppable, don't they?
Yeah, but nothing is a foregone conclusion. That's why we call it sport. It's not a play. It's not WWE. The result is in question. And yes, we have favourites and we have underdogs, and that in a lot of sports, shall I say, that's the reality. London, no one needs to be told that they are not favourites, and especially after the way they performed at Sheffield. I think they won 29-10, but very unconvincingly. It was away to Sheffield. Whereas Wigan, they were. I know Widnes did help them a little bit by, especially Josh Charnley scoring a hat-trick and didn't get a pass from his own team, just from drop balls from Widnes. But Widnes, they looked pretty good. They looked like a pretty slick, well-oiled machine. Sam Tompkins was back, firing at full-back. Lachlan was back in the team as well. So yes, London are firm underdogs in that game. But, the only message I can give to London is to say that, every rugby league player who is retired now would give anything to swap with them. They've got an opportunity to do what Muhammad Ali did back in the 60s, and that shocked the world, shocked the rugby league world, because no one is giving London a hoot's chance, but they should work to that in their favour, because rugby league is a simple game, of 6 tackles, and each team gets the ball. So, if you can defend and score tries, you've got an opportunity to win. And, Wigan probably thought they won back in 1998, didn't they, when they were playing against Sheffield? And we all know what happened that day. So there's no foregone conclusions, and that's the beauty of cup competition.
You're a Londoner. You're passionate about the sport excelling in London as well. How big would it be for the Broncos if they could get back here and have another special day out?
I think there's a lot of question marks over the Broncos going forward. Where are they going to play? Tony Clubb has come out in the press and saying he doesn't want to be there. Craig Gower has gone back. We don't know how long Tony Ray's going to be here. Jamie Soward is, only here to the end of the season. But what could a Challenge Cup victory do for rugby league in London? It would just, it would make it the London Broncos a sunny place to be, just as it is a sunny day today. And I think it really does mean that much. And if London can even just get to the final and get over Wigan, it would be absolutely amazing, and it would lift the profile of rugby league in London immensely.
The spectrum of London Rugby League is different now as to how it was when you were playing. They're bringing through a lot more of their own players now. How hurtful was it, do you think, for Tony Clubb, a London-bred player, the longest-serving player at the club, to say, I'm sick of losing and I don't want to be here?
Well, if I'm honest, it shouldn't have really taken him that long. But at the end of the day, he's a player there. So, the term rats leaving a sinking ship does come to mind a little bit. At the end of the day, if you're a player there, you got pride in the jersey. You can't cast blame on other people. You've got to take it on your own shoulders. I know Louis McCarthy, Scarsbrook has gone, and Amari Caro's gone. So a few players have flown the coop. But, just like rugby league, we've got players leaving rugby league, going to the NRL or to rugby union. You've just got to keep bringing more players through to replace them.
And just finally, it's a bit of an obvious colour of rugby football that you're leaving around Wembley. Just remind us how we can find out where it is.
Well, if you log on to Twitter and follow at Martin Offiah, I'll be putting some clues out there as to where you can find the ball and win those two free tickets, should I say, to the big hit in November.
So that's Martin Offiah looking ahead to the Challenge Cup at the weekend. Also mentioning, of course, Find Our Balls for the Rugby League World Cup. See our aforementioned note in podcast. And also, we're talking about various issues around the London Broncos as well. And that's it then for this special, slightly shorter, truncated, secret podcast for Rugby League Down South. We're back, I think, now in 2 weeks' time with another one for you. So stay tuned, keep downloading, keep listening. Thank you for your support. And fingers crossed, shall we say, for the weekend.